Mr. Speaker, sir, Honourable Speaker, Honourable Prime Minister, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Assistant Ministers, Honourable Members of Parliament, viewers, and ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the Honourable Minister for Economy and his team for a well-balanced and a well-distributed budget from a caring leadership. I personally feel this budget is prepared to alleviate hardships faced by our people. The initiatives put more money into the pockets of our people, plus they are designed to cushion the impact of the rising cost of living. There are also incentives across businesses, especially for small and medium-sized operators, to help stimulate economic recovery. Mr. Speaker, sir, protecting the rights, interests and well-being of current and future generations is vitally morally. It is not optional. Humanity faces unprecedented challenges. Failure to address these will undermine intergenerational well-being, cause grave injustice, increase fiscal risk and impose huge, if not unmanageable, costs on future generations. Rapid economic transformation is essential globally to protect humanity's long-term interest and minimize fiscal risk, and FijiFirst government is moving ahead in this direction. When politicians choose between the next election and the next generation, it's clear what usually happens. Mr. Speaker, sir, the COVID-19 pandemic has taken a significant toll on people all across the globe. This has put a fierce challenge on the sustainability and growth of the world's economy. This pandemic has viciously brutalized our and all economies globally. This pandemic has opened our eyes to the stark reality of survival in distressed times. The pandemic caused our economy to shrink by 17.2% in 2020, which took our GDP back to 2015 levels. However, given our expected rate of growth following the resumption of tourism last December, through government's foresight and decisive leadership, and with the tremendous support and participation of the Fijian people, we should fully return to pre-COVID GDP levels by 2024. The result speaks for themselves. Hundreds of SMEs are open and thriving throughout the country, creating jobs and contributing to Fiji's GDP every single day. None of this would have been possible without the government working throughout the pandemic to strengthen the resilience of both our formal and informal sectors. Mr. Speaker, sir, as an ancient Greek proverb says, and I quote, "A society grows great when old men and women plant trees whose shade they know they shall never sit in." Unquote. Humanity faces multiple risks, many creeping problems and unprecedented challenges: economic, demographic, technological, ecological, health-related, geopolitical, etc. The long-term economic and fiscal implications of these risks and challenges are massive. Failure to address the risks and challenges effectively will have profound consequences, potentially undermining the capacity for stable democratic governance and imposing immense economic, fiscal, and social costs. Mr. Speaker, sir, to provide more certainty to businesses, government is extending all licenses to 5 years, including licenses for insurance agents, sand and gravel extractions, as well as fishing permits and licenses. These longer-term licenses will help individuals and businesses to access additional financing which would not otherwise have been available under shorter-term licenses. Let me talk about the employment taxation scheme. The current employment taxation scheme, which expires on 31st December 2023, will be extended until 31st December 2024. The employment taxation scheme allows for the following: 300% tax deduction of the amount of any salaries or wages paid for first-time employees, 300% of the amount of any salary or wages paid to a student for employment of the student before the student's graduation, where the employment forms part of the student's course requirements of a higher education institution as defined in the Higher Education Act 2008. 300% of the amount of any salary or wages paid to a student for employment of the student in an area related to the student's area of study for a period not exceeding 3 months in a 12-month period. 400% of the amount of any salary or wages paid to a person with a disability for a consecutive period of 3 years. The employment taxation scheme will also be extended to include a 300% tax deduction for wages paid to persons employed for apprenticeships. Mr. Speaker, on tax deduction for companies sponsoring tertiary education, including vocational studies, a 100% tax deduction will be available to companies on the amount of tuition and living expenses paid for students at a higher education institution specified in the Higher Education Act 2008. The deduction applicable for the purpose of living expenses is limited to $7,000 per calendar year and must be paid into a bank account held at a commercial trading bank under the name of the student. Mr. Speaker, the government has also allocated funds in this budget to help mitigate the effects of rising inflationary pressures on household disposable incomes. Parents with a combined income of less than $50,000 will receive a payment of $1 per child per day for children under 18 years over a 6-month period. All applications currently receiving Energy Fiji Limited EFL subsidy, Water Authority of Fiji subsidy, and students on transportation assistance will automatically qualify as they are already assessed to be earning less than $50,000 annually. Approximately 200,000 students will benefit from this initiative. All existing social welfare, government pension and aftercare fund recipients will receive a payment of $180 over a 6-month period. Around 100,000 Fijians are expected to benefit from this. And all tertiary students, regardless of whether or not they are TELS or TOPAS recipients, will receive a payout of $180 over a 6-month period. About 30,000 students are expected to benefit from this scheme. The government will also introduce 200 awards under a rebranded skills qualification scholarship scheme previously known as TVET at Fiji National University. In addition, 200 grants will be awarded for micro qualifications to develop construction skills, inclusive of a $100 monthly industrial attachment allowance. Mr. Speaker, as announced in the budget from 1st of next month, bus fares will be reduced by 10% across the board for the next 6 months. Government will pick up the 10% cost so as not to place the burden on the bus companies. Commuters will pay discounted fares while the government will pay the difference directly to the bus companies. As announced earlier, the Vallevo shuttle bus pilot program will serve the Greater Nasinu area. The shuttle services will cater for around 13 routes at a cost of around $4 million. We will have electric shuttle buses running on these routes, representing the first electric public transportation fleet in Fiji. In the 2022-2023 budget, electric vehicles, including bikes, passenger vehicles, goods vehicles, and buses, both new and used, will continue to be imported at zero duty. Import VAT of 9% applicable on electric vehicles will be reduced to 0%. A cash rebate of $10,000 will be provided to individuals and businesses for every electric vehicle purchased. Businesses purchasing electric vehicles will qualify for 100% accelerated depreciation. And on duty on liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, for power generation and auto gas, duty on LPG will be reduced from 4 cents per kg to 2 cents per kg. The reduced duty will be applicable to LPG supplied for power generation and auto gas only. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of current governance challenges faced by governments throughout the globe, like COVID-19 pandemic and other infectious diseases, future pandemics, antimicrobial resistance, biophysical limits and ecological degradation like climate change mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity loss, pollution, waste, etc., major natural disasters, geopolitical conflicts, large-scale involuntary migration, demographic issues, population size and aging. Mr. Speaker, to curb these challenges, FijiFirst government is promoting long-term thinking and sound anticipatory governance. Our government is embedding long-term interest in mainstream scrutiny functions by employing principles of intergenerational fairness and well-being. We are periodically identifying significant societal risk and creeping problems, as well as opportunities, example from technological innovation and assessing their economic and fiscal implications. Mr. Speaker, sir, I can give some examples here, like to further ease the burden, COVID-19 economic support measures announced in the 2021-22 budget, such as electricity and water subsidies, Strong Together Job Support Scheme, and Jobs for Nature, social welfare support, access to GPs and medical practitioners, support for transportation, payment of base fees, PSB drivers' license fees, stall fees for market vendors, inshore fishing, etc., inshore fishing fees, etc., will continue for the next 12 months. In conclusion, sir, humanity faces multiple governance challenges, and failure to address these effectively will impose huge long-term costs, including large fiscal risk, and our government is giving greater priority to intergenerational fairness and well-being. Stronger incentives are there to enhance anticipatory governance and strengthen future-focused decision-making. In spite of the challenges we faced, this budget has allocated increased expenditure to all key ministries and statutory bodies. Every person in Fiji would benefit from this budget. This is indeed a well-balanced budget. Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the 2022-2023 national budget. Thank you. Vinaka Bakalebu. Dhanyawad.